And welcome back. Safe Horizons is the largest not-for-profit victim service agency touching the lives of more than 250,000 people, including children, adults, and families that are affected by crime and abuse throughout New York City each year. Now, during the COVID-19 pandemic, it increased the need for public awareness about the critical role victim service agencies serve for survivors, providing them with immediate resources to remain safe, including shelter placement, safety planning, and assistance with obtaining orders of protection. Joining me now to share a little bit more details is the Director of Legal Services in the Domestic Violence Law Project at Safe Horizon, Christine Perumal, and we thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, Darren. Thank you so much for having me. So like you said, Safe Horizon is the largest victim services agency. We've been serving survivors for over 40 years now. And we've really, during this pandemic especially, want survivors to know that they have a place to turn to, that Safe Horizon is here for help, that they are not alone. We serve survivors of domestic violence, child abuse, sexual assault, human trafficking, youth homelessness, and immigrant survivors of crime. So we cover a broad array of services at our agency.
Yeah, and talk to us a little bit about COVID-19. We talked about COVID-19 and really the effects. Are you seeing that there are more and more cases given the fact that so many people are staying at home?
So that's interesting. So we know that domestic violence is a pandemic in itself. And so there's another layer with COVID-19. So we have like a pandemic within a pandemic. And what we've been seeing is that, at the height of the pandemic, survivors were sheltering in place with their abusers. We weren't seeing a big increase in numbers with survivors reaching out to us. Our numbers slightly increased around June of 2020, and we've kind of leveled off since then. But what we've been seeing is how technology has played a role in the way we serve survivors during this pandemic. Like you said in the beginning, we've been serving survivors remotely with filing orders of protection in my program and the family court programs throughout New York City that Safe Horizon has. So the digital platform has increased our reach to survivors, which has been interesting.
So when we talk about domestic violence, it's a real wide array of things that occur. But for somebody who may be not familiar with signs, walk us through a little bit about the signs of domestic violence.
Sure. So there are signs of domestic violence or some may like to say red flags. And these are things that family members, friends can pay attention to. Sometimes signs may include extreme jealousy by the abuser, verbal abuse, putting down a survivor in front of family and friends, controlling finances, even cruelty to animals is something that we see in a lot of our cases in court. Accusations to the survivor, believing that the survivor may be involved in other relationships or having affairs, things like that are red flags and signs to look out for.
And so when we look right now, and you have a family member that's watching and saying, listen, I may know somebody. We all do have people in our circle, whether it's work, whether it's at home, or whether even at school, that we sometimes have questions and doubts about. How do we get that help? And what is the way that we can do that to be able to advocate for somebody that actually just may be a victim?
Right. So that's not always an easy conversation to broach. So I would encourage anyone who may want to help a survivor, family, friend, anyone going through that issue, call our hotline, get information from Safe Horizon that you can pass along to equip your family member or friend. If you're not comfortable having that conversation, making sure that you pass on these resources in a safe way to survivors can go a long way.
Yeah. And would you mind sharing a little bit more with our viewers about the Domestic Violence Law Project?
Sure. So the Domestic Violence Law Project is a legal program. We are a staff of attorneys and paralegals who assist survivors throughout New York City, all 5 boroughs, with free legal advice and or representation in family court. And the cases that we take on include orders of protection, child support, child custody, divorces, all in the family courts and Supreme Courts throughout New York City.
And for people right now, I know that, they're watching and they're saying, listen, this is some great work that you guys are doing in terms of really trying to help families out. But as we do know, there are some numbers that are rising, particularly with intimate partners and domestic violence. What are we hearing by way of like news stories and information? Because we also know, and we report about the increased number that we're seeing with regards to sex trafficking.
Right. So I think that it's just important to create a dialogue and for people to be more aware of potential signs. I mean, we've seen very recent news stories about human trafficking and the increased intimate partner violence with Gabby Petito and things like that. I think it's just to pay extra careful attention to signs that may arise that may be very subtle, but can go a long way if somebody recognizes that and tries to be a support system or somebody that a survivor can turn to in a time of need.
And so resources are very important. And I know that you're a very well accessible resource as well. But what other resources are out there to help families and individuals who may be suffering right now?
Right. So I am a lawyer, and our project primarily serves survivors who are in court. But Safe Horizon has an array of services, counseling services, mental health professionals that are equipped to deal with the trauma that a survivor goes through, community-based programs that also assist with safety planning and other referrals that can be useful to survivors. So we have a large array of services that we can provide. It's all dependent and very case specific on what the survivor is looking for. But I encourage anyone who's not quite sure of what service they need or who they need to speak to really call our hotline. We have advocates who answer those calls and are able to directly place a survivor in contact with one of our appropriate programs.
Yeah. Well, Christine, thank you for the great work that you're doing, really helping families. As we said, your agency is the largest in terms of victim services and helping people out. More than 250,000 children, families, and adults serviced by your work. Thank you so much for sharing with us and giving us some intimate details about domestic violence.
Thank you so much, Daren.
All righty. Well, if you want more information, please visit their website at safehorizon.org and then also follow them on social media at Safe Horizon. We do have more show. Don't go anywhere. Open continues coming up after the break.